Hello and welcome to this more or less morning session on our second day. Today's Friday, so we got a good party, I hope. I hope most of you were at the party. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you also enjoy my talk. I want to talk about identities, and I think that's relevant for all of us. And we're in the time where a lot of shift is happening, where things are moving very fast when it comes to technology, but nowadays also when it comes to regulation. So we will see quite a change in the future, and that's something I want to talk about because you can be part of it as an active member, but you will certainly be part of it as a user. My name is Adrian. I'm from Neosphere. We are the innovation unit of Commerzbank. And we have a brand within Neosphere. It's called Lissi. We provide software for organizations and end users to use your digital identity and make it accessible and yeah, privacy preserving. I'm a business development manager. While I have a technical background, this won't be a very technical talk. There will be certainly elements for you which will be interesting. However, if you want to see a terminal and brokering lines, whatever, then this won't be the talk for you. However, I guarantee that it will change your perspective of how you view digital identity. So let's start with what is digital identity in the first place? Because if I would ask everybody of you, I would get as many answers as there are people here. Digital identity is a whole subset of different mental models how you can view digital identity. It begins, for example, with identification. That's the idea with most people are most familiar about, right? Showing your ID card, because that's how it works in the physical world. And obviously we have this kind of counterpart in the digital world where we need to identify ourselves when we open a bank account or something similar. And we use postal ident, which we still use for like 50–60% of all identification processes in Germany, which is ridiculous. It's 2022, and we still use letters for identification in the online world. We have photo identification, that you make a photo or video of yourself, but that's also far from perfect, cumbersome, and high abortion rates. We also have authentication, the classical login, and we use the password still a lot. We use increasingly single sign-on services by the big tech companies, but they steal our behavioral data. They are in control. We as a user, we exist in their ecosystem. And also the whole topic of credentialing, right? When you go to university, you study for 4 years, you put a lot of effort in it. And in the end, you get a paper, which you can fake probably in 2 minutes. So we need to make sure that these processes work. And also when we talk about communication, most of us use emails, I guess all of us. They're good to a certain extent, however, they're prone to phishing. They're not ordering conversations on a chronological level. And you get so much emails that it's super easy to miss something important. So this creates a really complicated landscape for organizations where there are a lot of different tools they need to integrate, a lot of different providers they need to work with, where there are also a lot of vendor lock-in. And also there are too many interfaces for the user. It's really confusing. So we need a new solution. And the solution is to put it in the wallet. So there's an app on the phone, and it stores also it creates or enables all these different kind of functions: identification, authentication, credentialing, as well as communication. And that makes it easier for both parties. Organizations have a standard framework which they can use. They don't need to work with like a handful of vendors. They can choose one. And it also highly facilitates the IT infrastructure and the connection to it. And it's more easy for the customer, right? They have one wallet, they can use it for different kind of processes. For example, login, right? Like we all want to retire the password. So it has a lot of benefits to it, and that's what we want to talk about today. When we take a look at the ecosystem, then we position the wallet right now we're speaking about the natural person, here in the middle. So for example, if you want to show your university certificate to a potential employer, obviously it needs to be issued by somebody, the university. It gets issued to the end consumer. You can hold it in your wallet and can present it to whoever you like, right? And we want to work with certain standards which enable it to present it in different ways. For example, a delivery address. It should not come from your ID card, right? Which with the ID card, the delivery address would be verifiable. But maybe you live with your parents, with your sister, a friend, whatever. So it should be self-attested. However, if you want to identify, for example, for a bank account, the bank wants verified information. So you do a verified presentation so they can ensure that the information which you present is really issued by an authorized issuer. And also the whole topic of zero knowledge proofs, which enables to present something to a certain threshold. The most prominent example being 2018 or older. Or imagine applying for a new flat, the landlord wants to ensure that you have a decent income and wants to say, please provide me your payroll. But in the end, he only wants to know if you're earning 50,000 or more in the year, right? And that's something you can do with our technology, presenting thresholds. And if you in the end get 51,000 or 250,000, is none of his business. And we also use a verifiable data registry to make it possible to verify the information. So that can be a public key infrastructure. It can be centralized, it can be decentralized. Doesn't really matter. It's not that important in the end. Important is that it exists and that it enables verifiability of the credentials presented in a privacy-preserving manner. And in the end, only the issuer of the information writes information, mostly public keys, to the verifiable data registry, which then can be read by the other parties. Kind of similar to the domain name system. So, and we see a big mega trend in this direction. So that's not something which some techies thought about in their startup. It's something which we see as a mega trend in our society. For example, the Corona One app is a good example of data sovereignty demanded by citizens. Also, when it comes to the whole topic of Web3, we saw the merger yesterday of Ethereum. User control is a big mega trend. And something on a regulatory aspect is even more important, the revision of the eIDAS regulation. The eIDAS regulation is a European-wide regulation which regulates identification and trust services for all member states. And it was introduced in 2014 and is now revised. And revised in the aspect that they want to introduce the European Digital Identity Wallet. So every member state gets mandated to issue such a wallet to their citizens. As a citizen, you can decide. It's optional for you. But also for big platform providers, which have more than 100,000 users, they are also mandated to offer the option to authenticate, for example, with it, to use it in their context. So with this, we solve the chicken and egg problem. It's interesting because suddenly we have a whole completely new market. And this is something which is still ongoing. It will take some more years to really hit the market. But in October this year, we will see the toolbox which defines the standards used for this digital identity wallet. And so what we see is that in the past we had a lot of proprietary technology by gatekeepers. We have seen limited interoperability between platforms, and we see a lot of centralized infrastructure increasingly. Also, where there are only the use cases possible, which are predefined. They're not. You cannot really just introduce a new use case to it based on open standards, open infrastructure, and the gatekeepers have a great deal of control, which is a problem. So we want to move past that and say we want open standards and protocols which everybody can build on. If you want to build an application tomorrow, why not? You should be able to do it. And it should be interoperable not only between domains. The example again, getting a credential from the educational sector and using it in the private sector. That's the interoperability between domains, also public and private. but also between nation states, right? Getting a credential in Belgium and showing it to your employer or to another university in Sweden. And also the combination of attributes and credentials within the wallet, so the combination of it, showing, for example, that you're a student and that you have a driver license and something else in the same time. And obviously the great variety of use cases, because once you have the ecosystem and the standards, you can do whatever you want with it. So this is a huge opportunity, a new market which opens up for everybody. And I'm happen to also be honored to represent one of the consortia being active in this field. We're called ID Union, and it's basically we provide the base layer infrastructure and the governance for this kind of ecosystem. We're funded by the Ministry of Economics and Climate Action of Germany, and we're comprised of around 60 organizations, which you probably know most of them. Mostly German, but also from Switzerland and Austria. And we built this infrastructure and want to enable you to build use cases, to build your applications on top of it. So when we take a look at the use cases, we have different clusters, right? We have, for example, the e-government public sector, where you should be able to use a lot of different public services in the future. Also the whole topic of education. Imagine working in a university and using your wallet to access the library, to access Moodle, to access, to register for exams, get messages from the university about upcoming exam schedules, and more, right? So you can use this wallet in in different kind of domains, which makes it very powerful. Also for industry and IoT. For now, I only talked about natural persons, citizens. However, this technology is not limited to it. We can also use it for legal entities or for things. For example, providing an organizational ID to your supplier or a verifiable invoice. So there are a lot of options and new opportunities to make trusted interactions. Also, the topic of whole identity and access management is a big topic, as well as the whole topic of e-health. And this was now a lot of context to get to know what I'm talking about. Now I want to dive a bit deeper into what we need for it in terms of a technical as well as regulatory infrastructure. The basic building blocks are identifiers, credentials, as well as the whole topic of communication between agents of entities. And we also need applications which enable use cases on top of the infrastructure, as well as the technical network enabling the verifiability of the presented credentials, as well as a legal entity which governs the whole thing, which provides the legal framework and the rights and the duties of the different players involved. So let's take a look at each of them. Identifiers, as I said, emails, we use them as identifiers. And emails are really bad identifiers, to be honest. That's the reason why we want to introduce a new kind of identifier, a decentralized identifier, which you as a holder control yourself. The idea goes a bit into this kind of cryptocurrency idea where you create your own public and private key pair. So instead of getting an identifier where you can choose the prefix of the domain or of the email, but you're in a certain administrative bubble, right? If you go to Google, Yahoo, Web.de, you name it, you're always in their administrative domain. So if they want to delete your account, they just can. You can do nothing about it. But if you own your own identifier, if you own the keys for it, and you derive the public key from it, it's yours. Nobody can take it away. So that's the reason why I want to move away from emails, especially when it comes to identifiers, and moving on to decentralized identifiers, because there's not this kind of high level of dependency. They're also not resolvable by default. They should be resolvable by organizations, right? As a legal entity, I should be resolvable. My public key should be known. However, we as citizens, no, our identifier should not be resolvable. At least not if I don't wish that. Also in terms of correlation, right? Emails, we use the same email, or I don't know, maybe you have 4, maybe 5 emails, but probably none of you has, I don't know, 10, 15 emails, because it's really a pain. So correlation is something which we want to avoid, right? We want to give everybody a different identifier. You create a new identifier for every connection, a unique identifier only for this contact. It's basically a communication endpoint where you say, if you want to talk to me, you reach me here. And if you get information from me, I can sign it and you can show, you can verify that it's really coming from me. So we don't want to be correlatable. And the sharing for emails, it can be just taking your email and they share it with other parties and you get spam. I think you know that obviously, right? When it comes to decentralized identifiers, it's also possible to give this identifier to another party, right? And this party shares it. But then you know exactly who shared it because you gave it for one certain party, and you can just delete the connection, and then it's useless for the third party which acquired the identifier from you. And also encryption by default kind of makes sense, right? And also the offline capability. While we require internet connection for emails, we don't require it for decentralized identifiers because we can use other communication protocols like near-field communication or Bluetooth. When we take a look at verifiable credentials, then this is basically a data container where you put stuff inside, you make a seal on it, and you ship it somewhere. And somebody receives it, takes a look at the seal, and says, ah, yeah, I know that's coming from a certain issuer or a certain holder or a certain party, and everything which is inside is coming from them. And it's basically a standard way to say something about an entity. And we have these kinds of 3 roles again: issue, holder, verifier. And it contains a bit of metadata in terms of who's the issuer, what might be the image associated with it, what is the revocation mechanism, and so on. And then also the claims, which is basically the attributes in it. For example, the German ID card got 13 of them, 13 attributes, which makes up the whole credential. And the proofs, obviously, basically signatures to ensure verifiability and authenticity. And we also support selective disclosure, meaning from the 13 attributes of your ID card, you might only be sharing 2, 3, or some of them. And also zero knowledge proofs, which I explained previously. When it comes to the communication, we want to use the identifier also for communication. Encrypted peer-to-peer communication, a standard way to say to interact with somebody. And that's a good protocol then to enable communication between different agents in the ecosystem. And this is also standardized in different parties. It's and it doesn't really create trust on a societal level. We still need certificates for that. Same with TLS, right? You need some kind of certificate authority for it to ensure that the organization is really the organization it says. Editcom just provides a secure cryptographic secure communication channel, which is standardized in Decentralized Identity Foundation, as well as partly in Hyperledger. So now we have all the building blocks, and we need applications which use this kind of basic infrastructure and the components, the protocols, the standards to make it usable for organizations and end users to put into use and make use cases. So that's something which we provide with Lissi. Basically, we provide organizations with software to interact with a wallet. And the good thing is, you can use our software, but you don't have to. You can write your own. You can use open source. You can use another vendor. It doesn't really matter too much, because the same as we use email clients, it doesn't matter if you use Google, Thunderbird, or whatever, the email arrives, because the underlying protocols, they're standardized. And then you use this organizational agent to communicate with the end user, with the wallet of the end user, or with another organizational wallet. And we also build the technical network in terms of that we have different nodes. We're using Hyperledger Indy for that. And here a question in the audience: who's familiar with the Hyperledger stack? Okay, there's like 3 or 4 hands, 5. So the majority is not. Hyperledger basically is a foundation as part of the Linux Foundation, and it's an umbrella for different kind of frameworks, which mostly use decentralized infrastructure to enable different kind of use cases. And yeah, we have no central authority, we have no tracking, we are a central provider, we have high availability because of redundancy of nodes in the ecosystem, and also the high data integrity. And that contains the public key of the issuer, a schema, which is basically the sum of all attributes of a credential, as well as credential definition, because if you have a schema for a credit card, there will be a lot of banks using this kind of schema, and the credential definition enables you to ensure that it's really coming from the bank you want to have it from. And also a cryptographic accumulator for verification, which obviously needs to have high standards for privacy preservation. And we also built a legal entity for it. So that's a European cooperative, which we just incorporated, and which then is a very democratic form of ecosystem governance, one member, one vote, and together the members decide on the different kind of rules in the ecosystem. So how you get a pilot up and running? Basically, if you want to do a use case, you can just describe the use case, select it and describe it. You identify the different stakeholders, right, the roles in the ecosystem. You ensure demand with the verifier, because if there's no demand for having a verification, then why issue it? And also, there are different evaluation metrics which you can use to access it. You can then define the user experience, workflows, semantics, pricing, legal considerations, and then choose a right framework or application to use, the open source, the vendor, whoever. And then you hopefully get users. But I think there's also a lot of slides. At this point, I want to give you an illustration of how that actually looks in practice. So now, yeah, this is then in the end. I want to show you actually how that looks with a live demo. So here you see the wallet on the phone on the right side, and here this is okay. So here you see the agent, and we put that here away. So here on the left side you see the perspective of an organization. Can be a bank, can be a government institution, you name it. On the right side, you see the perspective of end user, right? The citizen, the user, the customer. And for example, I can then use it. I have here different tenants which I can use to represent different organizations or different part of the organization, right? Different departments, for example. And I kind of it's a demo purpose here, so I made some demo city, for example. And I can use it to create direct connections. So basically, I can create a new link, a new QR code or invitation rather. And then I can, yeah, this is. Sometimes the cable doesn't want as I want. And that connects, but we get there, no worries. So what I can do is just scan the QR code, and this is obviously if I'm using a desktop device to access it. I could also use a DITCOM link, which is embedded in a button, or a text if I use it directly on the phone. And I see here, okay, the contact wants to connect with me, the city, for example, which you live in, and then you can just accept the invitation. And you also saw that the contact is verified, which is obviously a very important information for the user. As a city, you then have different kind of credentials also already in place, like a driver license or similar. And I can just see, okay, I want to issue the driver license, and I select here a contact. I put in some data. It's now not important what it's written here. So I send it, and I send it via this kind of DITCOM connection. I send the verifiable credential to the wallet, and you see it here on the right side on the wallet tab. Ah, yeah, there's my driver license. I can take a look into the credential. Add credential says here, okay, that's the city which is offering the credential. I see what kind of credential is in here as well as the attributes. I can accept it and have it in my wallet, and then use it in another context. For example, I go to the website of an online store, right? Here, for example, and here I imported the credential definition already from the city. So I have it here ready, and I created a proof request which asks the wallet or the holder to present me certain information. Imagine going to a car dealership in Italy. You want to rent a car, want to go to holiday, and suddenly this says, please present me your driver license, and you have it derived on your phone before. So the merchant, the car rental company, just shows you some kind of QR code, or you do it on the website directly, however you like to do it. And what they send you is basically an information request. Please provide me with the information. And the information request now, for example, contains the driver license, as well as your credit card. You've got the credit card in your wallet already, and you see here the different kind of information, the attributes of the credit card, as well as the driver license. And here you can also provide some self-attested information. When do you want to pick up the car, right? 8 a.m., whatever. And you can send the information, and the shop gets the verified information. They can verify this is a valid driver license. It gets issued by a certain kind of authority, which I can trust. And that's it. It took me like 5 seconds. Right, so this highly improves this kind of customer processes, the ability to send information, and also to request and verify information from an organizational perspective. And that's built on open standards, open protocols, EU-wide. So that's what we will see in the next 3 to 5 years. And you can be part of it if you are interested in it and you want to find out more about it. You're super happy to reach out to me, especially if you're interested in this kind of agent part, I would say, to create this kind of applications for organizations. I would be very happy to talk to you, provide you some more information. And I want to show you my last slide here. If you want to take a bit more into detail, get more information, you can either try our demo, which is here as a QR code. You can also implement your own use case, right? The applications are available. They're open source. You can just run your own application on it. And you can also apply as a developer if you're interested to work together with us. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to hear questions.